Fighters are sometimes injured in their fights and require medical treatment afterwards. Their injuries, along with drugs administered to promote better healing results, a fighter being medically suspended from fighting is both for their safety as well as sometimes because of those drugs. This is the case for Derrick Lewis and other MMA fighters who were involved in a fight recently. Stay tuned to find out more details. Firstly, Derrick Lewis will be on the sidelines for a while after suffering a second-round KO loss to Tai Tuivasa. Lewis was suspended for 60 days following his bout at UFC 271 in his home city of Houston, Texas, per the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. In the win, despite taking some big shots early on, Tuivasa is only facing a 7-day suspension. At UFC 271, Tai Tuivasa scored the biggest win of his career, knocking out Derrick Lewis in the second round. Lewis was handed a 60-day medical suspension following his knockout loss to Tai Tuivasa via standing elbow in the second round. The Aussie heavyweight took out Lewis in an absolute slobber knocker of a fight inside the Toyota Center in Houston, delivering exactly what the fans had hoped for. Lewis claimed the first round, taking Tuivasa down twice in the opening 5 minutes. The bout went up a notch in the second round as the pair traded blows. The fight prompted a suspension and an imposed break for Derrick Lewis. Following their 5-round battle for the middleweight title, Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker were both issued suspensions until February 28, 2022. Adesanya successfully retained his championship via unanimous decision. Next, 2 fighters were also given indefinite suspensions following the UFC's February pay-per-view event. Kyler Phillips submitted Marcelo Rojo in the third round of their bantamweight matchup. Kyler Phillips and Marcelo Rojo competed on the preliminary card of UFC 271 in the early hours Sunday morning in a bantamweight bout at the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. Phillips began the fight as he meant to go on, throwing razor-sharp leg kicks at Rojo, who seemed to make little attempt to block the blows, as was later proven by the UFC's official data, which found that Phillips threw a total of 14 leg kicks in the fight and landed 100% of them. Needless to say, Rojo's left leg took some serious damage and was pretty chewed up by the end of the fight. In another suspension, Maxim Grishin, who defeated William Knight via unanimous decision in the event's opening bout, could also be out of action for the foreseeable future. Light heavyweight fighter Maxim Grishin has been suspended indefinitely despite winning a unanimous decision on the UFC 271 undercard. Grishin won every round against his rival Knight in the opening fight of last weekend's pay-per-view to pick up just his second promotional win. However, the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation released their medical suspensions for the event, in which Grishin will now be out of action indefinitely. However, a quick reminder, fighters often return to action much more quickly once doctors give them the green light. In most cases, the lengthy suspensions are just a precaution. In addition, not all injuries are recorded during the post-fight examination and often surface in follow-up tests. Now, in other UFC news, Joaquin Buckley will have his own version of Sensei Seagal for the UFC Vegas 48 fight when the internet-famous Dale Brown corners him against Abdul Razak Al Hassan. The meme-friendly Detroit urban survival training founder apparently made quite an impression on Buckley during a recent visit, and a person close to the fighter confirmed to MMA Fighting, a TMZ report, that Brown will be at the UFC Apex on Saturday to give him some pointers. Buckley's trip to DUST earlier this year was a natural fit given his viral superstar status for his knockout of Impa Kasangane, and Brown for his weapon disarming techniques of questionable effectiveness. Now, Brown will allegedly serve as a real-time advisor to the hand-to-hand combat expert, just as actor Steven Seagal did for Anderson Silva so many years ago. Seagal, of course, never got the chance to officially corner the then UFC middleweight champ, but didn't hesitate to take credit for the front kick that knocked out Vitor Belfort at UFC 126. Next up, Johnny Walker, who was unfazed by the short notice, changed to a 5-round fight, says, "I don't need that much." Johnny Walker will take out Jabal Hill in the main event of UFC Vegas 48, but it wasn't always supposed to be that way. Originally, Walker and Hill were to serve as the co-main event to a lightweight contest between Rafael Dos Anjos and Rafael Fiziev. But when Fiziev encountered visa issues, the fight was moved to UFC 272, and Walker vs. Hill was promoted to the main event. With that change, the light heavyweight matchup is now a 5-round fight, and while that might bother some athletes on short notice, Walker said he doesn't care at all. He's just thrilled to be back in the main event. "I think it's amazing. I'm so happy, so glad," he told Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour. "I don't care whether it's a 3 or 5-round fight. I have no idea. I didn't ask. I just want to fight. I don't care if it's 3 or 5. I can fight 20 rounds, so it doesn't matter to me if it's 3 or 5. I don't need that much. If this guy wants to come with everything, then I'll go that way as well, so I'm going to finish the fight early. I always train for 5 rounds as well." Walker's excited excited about returning to the main event in part because he didn't think he would be back at the top of the card, at least not so soon. Although Walker still ranked number 10 in the MMA fighting global rankings, the Brazilian has been on a rough run, losing 3 of his past 4 fights. Most recently, he was on the wrong side of a unanimous decision to give Thiago Santos the much-maligned main event this past October. It was a performance that Walker said was the result of a number of factors, including the fact that Santos is also from Rio de Janeiro. Up next, Hunter Boone's gruesome cage injury could spur new rules for the Tribal Commission. Promoters in Oklahoma may face new padding requirements for MMA cages after an amateur fighter was severely injured this past Saturday at an event on tribal land. Regulators with the Citizen Potawatomi Nation Boxing Commission, which oversaw the Martial Combat League event in Shawnee, will first need to decide what materials will guarantee the fighter's safety in the cage. That could mean thicker or more dense foam to protect the areas like the one Boone ran headlong into, opening a cut that required 17 staples to close. Where this happened is probably something nobody would have caught, Joey Miller, the CPN Commission's executive director, told MMA Fighting. Video from the February 12th event appears to show Boone making contact with a section of the cage door and dropping to the canvas. He appears to momentarily lose consciousness before securing his opponent, Jordan Brown. The referee, Kevin Nix, then notices something and immediately waves off the fight. Miller said the cage was inspected by the commission and the referee before and after the event, and nothing out of the ordinary was found. One of Boone's training partners, Jesse Dalton, alleged the injury was caused by an exposed metal bracket on the cage, but Miller indicated the padding simply wasn't strong enough to withstand the impact of Boone's head. In a text message, Boone on Tuesday told MMA Fighting he sustained a concussion from the impact and is still kind of out of it. He said he would speak about the incident after he had more time to recover. That wouldn't keep him out of the gym, however. His coach, Jason Greer, said Boone planned to help corner teammates with upcoming fights on Wednesday. Coming next, Chad Mendes plans to reevaluate his MMA options after his bare-knuckle debut and expects he'll love this or probably hate this. MMA retirements are as mythical as any retirement in sports. Do they truly even exist? As we've seen time and time again, not really. That's why it wouldn't be stunning to imagine Chad Mendes returning to the cage at some point, and he agrees, numbers depending. The 36-year-old team alpha male staple is set to make his bare-knuckle boxing debut this Saturday night and has already let it be known that he's being paid quite handsomely. According to Money, he'll make more for his efforts than UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou's $600,000 for successfully defending against Cyril Gane at UFC 270. Despite competing for the BKFC now, Mendes, with an 18-5 record, is still under contract with the UFC. He admits to being surprised by the gesture, but also notes that some things would need to be adjusted for a possible return. This return to action will mark Mendes' first appearance since December 2018, outside of a 2019 grappling match with Casillas Cavalcante. Mendes would announce his retirement from MMA after a fight of the night with future champion Alexander Volkanovski. It was only his second fight after returning from a 3-year layoff due to an out-of-competition failed USADA test. And that'll be all for today. Thanks for watching.